Now we have Ashwini Saxena. He serves as a CEO, JSW Foundation, board director of JSW Shakti and JSW SWPL, and trustee Heal Foundation. In his 30-year-long career at Unido, IFC World Bank, and other large corporates, Ashwini has worked across India and Africa, leading MSMEs development, CSR sustainability programs, and has championed IFC's sustainability tools in South Asia. With several publications to his credit, he frequently contributes to various task forces, advisory committees, and juries. Today, Ashwini gives us an insight on the role of CSR in achievement of SDGs, the challenges and opportunities. Thank you.
This is Indian good evening time, so I must say good evening to all of you. I'm sure my global friends are from various time zones, so please accommodate accordingly. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak on a topic which is quite close to my heart, because I've been a development / CSR professional, sustainability professional, whatever word you may like to use. My task would be to point out on two things and to pick up from where Dr. Bernardo left. I was listening to him very intently, and some of the important aspects of development that he touched upon. First of all, I would like to focus on how SDGs. I'm sure it's not important for me to touch upon as to why SDGs are important. All of us know SDGs are important for all of us, but the significance of SDGs vis-a-vis the earlier MDGs that we were using as the goalpost, as the sign for our guiding light. The thing that SDGs point out in a very big way and very importantly for us is that number one, development is supposed to be co-owned by all constituents of this globe. It's neither a public issue, it's nor a private issue, and three, and nor is it only in the hands of the CSOs, as we call them. It's everybody's responsibility. It is everybody's goal. So I think that's one very important thing that SDGs have kind of brought out once again very significantly. The second point is that it has for the first time very clearly defined that the private sector also happens to have a very, very important role in that. And therefore, the involvement of private sector at the time of even setting of the targets and the goals, I think that's another very important point, which kind of also puts a lot of emphasis on the private sector to be behaving responsibly and adding to this attainment of SDGs. And they do have the capacities also, the wherewithal also. And it's certainly not just financial when we talk about how many trillions of dollars are going to be required to attain the SDGs over the coming 2 decades. That's just besides the point. I think there are a whole lot of other resources at the disposal of the private sector, which will play a significant role if we are going to attain the SDGs in their true spirit. The third more important aspect for me is that SDGs have very clearly articulated how all things are so interrelated, how they're all so much connected to each other, positively or negatively, by which one has to be very sure of how these things are going to be tackled by the practitioners who are looking at the SDGs. So therefore, it's not about just working on one aspect of development. It's about looking at a whole multitude of things. And I'll just give you some simple examples. When you look at that, you have to reduce by 2030 the global maternal mortality rate by to less than 70%, 70 deaths per lakh of live births. You are actually talking about a whole range of initiatives that may need to be taken up in their totality and in their comprehensiveness to address the issues related to poverty, to issues related to maternal health, issues related to violence against women. So whole dimension of not just public health initiatives, but even livelihood initiatives, nutrition initiatives, well-being initiatives, and social change initiatives would be important so as to achieve that this maternal mortality rate is achieved where we want to reach it by 2030. Similarly, if you look at the way the targets are set for doubling up the agricultural productivity, it certainly does not mean that you can do agricultural productivity, enhance it to a certain level without keeping cognizance of how this is going to shape up in terms of your carbon emissions, in terms of how climate smart this agriculture is supposed to be. I'm sorry. And so therefore, the significance of comprehensiveness, the significance of looking at the larger picture and in its complete dimensions of it, I think that's where the focus SDGs are pointing us towards. And this is where I believe that CSR plays a very significant role in that. First of all, because the SDGs do require private sector to play a significant role in this in the attainment of SDGs. Therefore, CSR becomes the first important tool at the hands of the private sector. The second one, that comprehensiveness that is required, the long-term sustenance that is required to continue sustain your efforts on a long-term basis and make sure that we do deliver on some of those targets. I think that's the second challenge which the private sector can play. I always anecdotally refer this to all my team members and my other colleagues in the sector, that while the policymakers may change, the implementers may change, the implementing CSOs may decide to work on a certain subject or not, but we as a private sector have a perpetual presence wherever we have set up a steel plant, or wherever you have an energy plant, or wherever you have put a cement plant, or for that matter any other initiative that you may be doing as a private sector entity. You are there for a project life cycle of not less than 30 to 50 years, and therefore it's important for them to be in the driving seat and make sure that contextually relevant things which are locally important are taken care of. And therefore this so-called social license to operate, which is the most common term used in the space of CSR, is not just about doing small little things to keep the local communities happy and just doing good neighborhood practices. There is a greater opportunity for you to be sitting in the driving seat for developmental change, for a positive change in people's lives, and thereby building that relationship, a long-term trust relationship with the communities, which is going to set ground for you to have your social license to operate. So therefore, this is where I think the CSR again plays a very important role. Uh, Now, so therefore, if these are the opportunities, where are the challenges also lying in terms of implementation of CSR? CSR, the way it has grown from various directions. Somewhere it has been an extension of IR and HR activities. Somewhere it has been an extension of communication activities. So it's more about PR and communications, for a company's lens. At some places, CSR has taken up a shape through a very different marketing kind of a lens, etc. But the fact that it is a process of development, it is an opportunity for contributing to the process of development in at least the local area where you can operate as a small business or a large business, and therefore you can lay claim to your contribution towards the growth and the development of that space. I think that's a piece which has been missed out, and slowly and steadily I think now this is taking shape, where the confluence of development and CSR is becoming blurry by every passing day. Development and CSR are now being used in a quite synonymous manner in many number of places. I think that's another opportunity, and I think a version of a threat which has been plaguing the sector for so long. The second aspect about CSR has been that it has been termed in a large number of ways. Somebody calls it corporate social responsibility, somebody calls it community investment, some people call it sustainability. There is a new jargon called ESG. To me, I've always been advocating this. At the end of the day, it's all about looking at comprehensive manner in which you are making profits, you are supporting people, and you're supporting the environment. And I think this is where the three dimensions of SDGs, which focus upon economic, social, and environmental issues, I always add another element to it, and I call it as the governance piece. which is where how do we connect the three together? We don't just focus either on our carbon emissions and water footprint and whatever other footprint that we may not like to talk about and club it as sustainability, or whatever we do in terms of the social sustainability, as I may use the term, uh, relegating it to only as community investments or feel good factor, etc. kind of a thing. So it is this opportunity of CSR to comprehensively handle issues related to development in a particular geography, in a particular local cultural context, and see what's relevant for that, and thereby contributing towards those attainment of SDGs. I think that's where the CSR comes in. We as a foundation have been 30 years old as an organization, and uh, ever since the SDGs have come, we've adopted a framework where every single piece of work that we do is methodically mapped to the SDGs, and not just the SDGs, but the 169 subordinate targets that have been set. Because we still would be a small little drop in the ocean. We would be a small cog in the entire ecosystem of development. And therefore, whatever little work that we do, how is it connected to the larger picture? How is it going to contribute towards some of those SDG targets? I think that's where the focus has been from our side. Uh, the challenges, therefore, for implementation of CSR to attain SDGs is one, the level of understanding that exists in terms of what and how SDGs are and they need to be tackled. Third, second, not using the word SDGs and just using any of those terminologies in a very cursory fashion. There is a lot of detail there, a lot of material has been generated. It's important for CSR institutions to focus upon that and get into those details, and therefore align their work better. The third challenge, which I think is internal to CSR institutions, is that you know uh, it's important for you to report back on what you achieved. And when you have to report back, you normally tend to report back with a sectoral lens. And when you start reporting back in a sectoral lens, you knowingly or unknowingly start putting things into silos. And the moment you start putting things into silos, you miss the interconnections, the lateral connections that one target may have with the other one. It may be a positive relationship or a negative relationship that seems to be missed out. And that's where I think CSR would have a much significant role to play, to say how we are going to address the issues, how we are going to contribute towards the SDGs, but at the same time capture them in a more comprehensive manner, in a more understandable manner, and not just look at sectoral targets in their independence, but rather in their interdependence. I think that's where the challenge for CSR's implementation is going to lie. The other aspect of CSR challenges is that the budgets would be always about what you can possibly spend. India has a very unique proposition where there's a compulsory spend, but that again is a kind of a stated figure, and that figure itself may also change over the years on a year-to-year basis. So sustenance of your own interventions requires a whole lot of convergence which needs to be brought in, by which resources can be brought in, by which financial as well as technical resources can be roped in, and which is where I think a whole lot of work still needs to be done by CSR institutions. Because as I said, the beginning has been from an IR lens or from a corporate communications lens. And so therefore, having that gravitas to say that we've been able to contribute to this extent, but hey, this has been supported by X, Y, and Z, and therefore we've not been able to do, say, 100% achievement. We've just been able to contribute to, say, 20% of it. I think that seriousness and that earnestness is going to take shape. It's going to take time, and which is where I think this ecosystem of CSR institutions also needs to be strengthened, not just by policymakers, but a whole range of other institutions who have been traditionally working with CSOs and therefore compromising in a significant manner. Uh, I myself have begun my career and spent several years working with the multilaterals, where the horizon is 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The project timeline is the horizon to which they would like to contribute, but the problems don't get solved in that time frame, unfortunately. And so, therefore, you need long-term vehicles to collaborate with you, to work together with you, and sustain the implementation, sustain the programs over a longer period of time, so that the desired results can be achieved. So I think these to me come across as the most important challenges and the opportunity for CSR to contribute towards the attainment of SDGs. I think I've been within my time limit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashwini. Our next